There's more to learn about farming than just desiring to have a farm. Hey, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Many of our subscribers are high-income individuals who dream of getting back to nature and being out on a farm or a homestead or an estate as kind of their lifestyle business. Now, we know from the last 18 months that working remotely is possible. It is possible to have a job that pays a high income and doesn't have to commute to an office. There's no commute. There's no finding a place to park. There's no office cubicles that are noisy. Now, sure, for a lot of folks working at home, they do have their children. They have distractions. But you know what? How many of you work all day long and see very little of your children? In fact, your children are being raised by daycare centers, public school systems, and other people who in many cases put your children at risk to indoctrination, physical harm, and other factors that maybe you can control if you worked from home. So we know that's possible. We know that getting out to nature reduces stress. We're all stressed, all high-income folks. You make more than $100,000 a year today, you're stressed because it either is not enough to pay the bills, like if you live in a major city, or once you've got a high-income job, you know how hard it is to replace it. So you're thinking, if only I had a small farm, a homestead, or an estate where I was growing my own food, I had my own animals, I had the opportunities to be with my family more. And then this dream becomes difficult to achieve. I hear from many subscribers who say, I bought the land and I bought the house and now everything's overgrown and the tractor costs too much and all this equipment and I don't know how to fix anything and it's getting expensive. By the way, folks, I'm working on a design plan for a client and I actually manage the vendors. So it's kind of a procurement, project management approach. A fence to fence in 24 acres is $79,000. Okay? Just one fence post, the corner posts that hold the fence up, $54 right now. Now, some of this is inflation. Some of it is the fact that a good quality fence could last 75 years. So it's not actually $79,000. It's only $1,000 a year or $1,500 a year for the next 75 years. And then there are ways to get funding for things like this, but the client opted for a smaller fence. So we're redesigned for a 12-acre paddock as the primary paddock to install, and then what are we going to raise on there to pay for the fences? Now, long before that, the client needs to make sure that they can raise the animals that they're looking to have. There are so many farms on Craigslist right now where people are selling their goats and selling their pigs and they're selling their cows because they find out it is actually difficult. So the theme of what we're really talking about here today is, are you investing in the knowledge necessary and here's the important part, applying that knowledge? So let me share my own personal experience. I have been doing organic gardening and I have been doing, I have a permaculture design certification. I can design and help other people create homesteads, farms, estates. I understand how household management works. And I'm growing a mixed berry bed. So I'm installing the bed. I tilled it up last week. The bed is probably 45 feet long and 4 foot wide. We're going to put mixed berries there, and I'm working over at this farm, and I've got the pots in the ground. I had a little help getting everything in. We cardboard mulched, and then I'm going to grab the wheelbarrow and start bringing over some mulch. So, okay, because we've got the cardboard down, and we're going to put the water down, and the guy who owns the farm is looking at me, and he says, that's going to be a lot of mulch. It's probably about 2 cubic yards of mulch, right? Maybe 3. And he says, that's going to be a lot of mulch. Do you want me to help? And I said, well, yeah, sure, but I only have one wheelbarrow. And he said, well, I had another idea. I was like, well, what is it? He says, I do have a tractor. See, I'm so used to garden scale. I'm so used to being petroleum adverse. I'm so used to doing things with hand tools. And in fact, I pride myself in my own garden to use primitive tools and ecological designs that in many cases are self-watering. And, I do own a BCS tractor, but I don't own a backhoe or a tractor or a bobcat. It has crossed my mind, but it never crossed my mind that I would be up and down that hill bringing wheelbarrow load after wheelbarrow load of mulch. When with a tractor, he simply went over, scooped up some mulch, straddled the 4-foot wide bed with the tractor, and then I just forked it out of the tractor bucket to put around the plants. And in 2 scoops, maybe 10 minutes, we were done. I'd have been up and down that hill all damn day long. And we had a discussion about this. Many folks who have knowledge about how to do these things, I'm not doubting your ability either, but the knowledge you have has to have practical application. If you don't do the practical application, you won't be able to scale what you're doing. So for example, for a client, I can calculate the animal units that for different types of animals that a certain amount of property can handle. Now, I can also advise them on how to scale into that amount. So for example, a particular property could handle 30 goats or 15 goats and 15 hogs, and we kept breaking it down to different combinations. Like I can calculate that, but what I can't do is go to the property and tell them whether or not they need to move the animals. Now I can if I'm at the property, but I can't physically go to their property all the time to tell them to move the animals. And if they don't move the animals and they overgraze, then that load of animals could be too much for that property. So the management, the day-to-day management, the day-to-day activities, just because you have a design doesn't mean you're doing the day-to-day activities correct. So there's 2 things I want to leave you with. One is that I want to encourage you to continue to learn. It's okay. Watching Jeff Lawton videos, watching gardening videos and stuff like that is great. It's great. You're going to start picking up ideas and concepts. But I want to challenge you to go out there and actually implement at whatever scale you're comfortable with, implement those things that you're learning in your own garden, in your own home. Volunteer and go someplace. I actually volunteer on a farm. I joke around that I'm a sharecropper, but I've managed a 2-acre, the joke is I'm the assistant manager, but basically I'm working a 2-acre garden. And at that scale, it is significantly more than what I've done before. Now, I've worked in erosion control projects. I've worked on land management. But an actual garden of that size requires you to put out hundreds, tens of thousands of plants over a season. And you handle things a little different. You till areas, large areas, and then you mulch and cover them, or you put cover crop in, rather than in a smaller garden where you could just go buy in enough compost to just bury everything. So I have a video about using cardboard mulch to make new raised beds, and I literally put 2 cubic yards of manure over top of cardboard, and then I layered manure, straw, compost, manure, straw, compost, and then finally topped off with straw. Yeah, you can do that when the bed's only like 10 foot long. But when you're doing 128 foot rows, come on now. Implement. Now, you will make mistakes when you implement. You'll discover things like I discovered today that, hey, that mentality of no fossil fuel, you might as well use the fossil fuel while you've got it. If you got a tractor sitting there and it's got a bucket on it, and you have the choice between dumping 2 loads from the bucket in 10 minutes or spending the rest of the damn day in the hot sun up and down a hill in a wheelbarrow because it looks cool. You know, you saw one of these guys on TV showing their farm and how they don't use any fossil fuel and everything. Yeah, they dump a tractor trailer load of compost on their property or wood chips on their property, and then they rush it around with the wheelbarrows. They discount the fact that truck runs on petroleum to get over there. Now, you want to be smart. So, for example, in large permaculture projects, early in the project, if you're using heavy equipment, that's great because you can do contouring, you can do correction of access and water. You can set up a framework that gets you to that next level, and then over time, The property has a food forest. The property has very low maintenance items. Maybe it uses smaller equipment or no equipment at all. But again, you don't know for sure what works for your family, your small farm, homestead, or estate, unless you get out and implement. And this causes people to buy equipment they don't need. It causes people to get into a large number of animals when they could have started with 2 or 3. It gets people in a situation where they're stuck in the city and they have this longing and frustration to start learning these things. And then when they finally get out there, they have no practical experience to do these things. So folks, volunteer. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with starting a community garden. There's nothing wrong with actually working on a farm, somebody else's farm. So when I was younger, I actually helped to cut tobacco. I've cleared fields. I help put tobacco up into barns. I help there's a couple volunteer and nonprofits around here where I've helped with fish rescue or feeding animals or doing these things that build up skills. Now, you may never use some of these skills, but could it be a family activity where everybody gets involved? Could you go to a petting zoo and just get an idea of the different types of animals that are out there? Go to a wild game dinner and learn about some of the ecology that attracts wildlife to your property. There's a lot that you can do to apply what you've learned and build a foundation for success with your small farm, homestead, or estate. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you've got any questions about this or anything else that we've covered, contact me at www.prosperityhomestead.org. See, we have lots of resources, insights, knowledge that helps you get started, yet years of practical experience that helps you solve real problems that you'll face. You know, for example, knowing that the property has the holding carry capacity for 30 goats doesn't mean that for the life of your farm, you'll be able to support 30 goats. 30 goats in a wooded area in 1 acre is going to clear that acreage. They're going to clear out all the underbrush in about a week, easily. They could do it faster, depends on how much underbrush is there. And then they're not going to have any food. So you can move them, but if you don't move them at the right time, they can overgraze and kill the trees or kill the underlying plants, because a goat actually grinds the seeds to nothing. So they're great to get in there and remove briars and remove plants that are invasive. But if you don't get them off that property into the next space, you're not going to be able to then seed it and get the new plants going. See, there's cycles, there's understanding. But again, learn it. Watch the videos. That's fine. And then apply it. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead, where we help homeowners with their small farms, homesteads, or estates. And we help you do that starting today, where you are today. I'll meet you right where you're at. Answer your questions, get you good advice, get you design plans so that you can have the dreams that you desire without the nightmares that come with not understanding scale, just like today. The guy saved me by offering his tractor, and frankly to him, he's got a 136 acre farm, so he understands. But frankly to him, it was just as unconceivable that I wouldn't ask to use the tractor as it was for me to just wheelbarrow it and not think about the tractor. Folks, you can do this. It takes time. It takes a community. It takes implementation so that you can work. And we can set you up with all kinds of resources, by the way, whether it's in your region or someplace like what we have here with the Permaculture Demonstration Center and some of the nonprofits that I mentioned that I've done animal work with. It's just a matter of doing it, man. You're just one step away to get to your dream, to start moving towards your dream, and you can start right now. Thanks for listening. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead.